automatically mutes him. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Welcome back to Casual Conversation with GNA.
Yeah, we're here with another episode, and our guest today is Donny Cho. Thank
Hi.
you.
Yeah, Donnie's been in the chat before and he's in other different chats, so I get to he's very funny.
Yeah.
I like him in the chats cuz he lights the chat rooms on fire.
Yeah.
I'm always into chats.
Yeah, that's cool. Me too. You know, I kind of like being in everybody's chat, like just
Mhm.
you know, instead of like being like, because sometimes, we'll get invited, hey, come on or join the live. And I'm like, no, I like the chat. It's so fun. But
I notice a lot of people are really shy. That's one of the things that surprised me in the beginning because I thought more people in the chats would like try to come on and try to appear on
Yeah, that's
camera. But then
true.
yeah,
I realized a lot of people are real shy.
you know
Yeah.
what? I think for me, it's mostly um, like I get intimidated. I think it's what it is. Like I
Mm.
kind of like, because we've been doing it for
Yeah,
how long?
maybe like,
A year, 2 years, maybe?
yeah, probably 2 years.
And so like sometimes when I go into other people's chats and they're more seasoned, I kind of get intimidated and I'm like, oh, I don't know what to talk about. Like I don't know what to say. Like it's just you get that kind of like fangirl moment. That's what I
Yeah.
get. So, I get kind
Yeah.
of embarrassed or shy, but
Did you
once
have
I
like
get
your did you have like a biggest fangirl moment? Like do you remember of like all
you
the
know
ones where
what?
you were
I think because I listened to one of the big ones that there's a few YouTubers that I really really enjoyed and like the first one that I actually talked to and that I was very intimidated by was Dark Waters.
Oh,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, I've been following him for a long time, and when he kinda reached out I reached out to him, and then he answered, I was like, "Oh my gosh," like, I got so nervous,
Yeah, and then
but
he wanted to do an interview, and I was like, what are we gonna do?
yeah, like and it didn't go like, we didn't have our setup yet, so it was kind
Mhm.
of like
Yeah, it wasn't the best.
yeah. But, yeah, there's a few, I mean, like, um, Dave Scott, like, I've talked to him before, and then, Steve Stockton too, like when
Oh yeah.
when he messaged me, I was like, "Oh my gosh, like this is crazy." I wanted him to come on, so hopefully I'll get him to come on sometime still if he's
Yeah.
still interested. But yeah. Yeah.
Steve's a nice guy. I'm sure he will.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think they're all nice. They're all
Yeah.
like I haven't had a bad experience with anybody on YouTube. Like if so far, like I'm so blessed. I'm like, "Oh, thank God I'm having like I don't want no drama. I just want to be
Yeah.
friends with everybody." But it gets pretty it could get pretty hard sometimes.
Yeah, I'll admit I could get a bit wild in the chat sometimes. Sometimes I like to push buttons.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm like, this chat needs a little bit of spice. Let's get wild.
There you go.
Yeah, my dog's
But
gonna be trying to constantly be up in my face this whole time, so he's
What kind of dog is he?
oh, he just fell. He's half Maltese, half mini pincher. He's like 2 years
Oh,
old, so he's like still very much in need of attention. There he is.
oh, what a
oh,
cutie.
how cute. I
Yeah.
just I just got a dog too last Friday, so we're trying to kind of like house train him.
Yeah, she's a puppy still.
Yeah,
Ooh.
it's hard. I got her as I wanted a bigger puppy because I know puppy phase is
Hmm.
crazy. So I was
Yeah.
like, okay, let's get an older puppy. So we kind of, but no, like she was just basically left out there, and the
What
owner
kind
didn't
of
really.
what
She's
kind
a
of dog?
Yorkie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I love
but she was
Yorkies.
like, when I got her, she was very matted. Like she was not very well taken care of. So I was like, oh, like I feel so bad.
How
But
does
we got her
somebody
cleaned
miss?
up.
Okay, well, it's a good thing she got a nice home.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
she was saying. She's like,
Yeah.
just take her. She needs a home.
I'm like, yeah, you'll give her a good life, and she's the cutest.
Yeah, she's a
She's
cute
such a
little doggy.
sweetheart. Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, you still have to go through the whole pooping on the carpet phase and chewing up things she shouldn't
Yeah.
chew phase.
Yeah, she's
Yeah.
something else. And you know, like that's the other thing we have. I still have her. She's at her house, but I have a poodle, like a little
Toy
toy
poodle.
poodle, and I feel like dogs are just I think I have telepathy with her. Like
Yeah, she's
I can
so
tell what she's
smart.
thinking and she can tell what I'm thinking. Like it's weird. And so I've had her since she was a baby and she's kind of like 11 now, right?
Yeah.
11, so she's
Whoa.
older,
So
but
you
she's
guys are
really really smart.
connected. You guys are like
Yeah.
connected, connected.
And I feel like she talks to both of us,
Yeah,
right? And my mom too. She's very like she'll tell my mom when she wants
yeah.
water, she wants to go
And she'll
bathroom.
just look at her and she's like, "You want water, huh?" And then she'll run.
Like yeah, like
Oh,
it's
like,
you know,
weird.
that reminds me, you know who would be an excellent choice to get as a guest one of these days? Rob Guttrow. He's like a pet medium. He's like a
What?
psychic who
Oh, that would
communicates
be
with
so
animals.
cool.
Yo, he's real cool.
What's his name?
Rob Guttrow. I'll send you his information
Okay, yeah,
afterwards.
please.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's
because
cool.
we're dog lovers. I
Yeah, we
mean, I've
love
had cats
dogs.
here and there, but I feel like my cats would just freak me out because
Yeah.
they would just like space out and like look at stuff, and I'm like, stop. Like, is there
Like,
ghosts in here? What?
uh-oh,
Why are you staring off into space? And then
that's not
like,
good.
yeah, so I was like, no, you're creepy. You're getting me scared. But
Ooh.
I feel like dogs are more lovable. They
Yeah,
kind
they're
of express their love a little bit more. I mean, that's just my opinion. I don't have nothing against cats. I love cats too, especially black ones.
The thing I like about cats is when they do show you love, you feel like you earned it. You
Yes,
yeah.
know? Yeah,
exactly. They're so like, no, you gotta earn my love. Like
yeah,
Yeah,
I'm not just
they're very independent.
they are. Yeah.
yeah. They play
But
hard. They play hard to get.
Yeah,
yeah.
they do.
But I feel like, do you think that cats are more in tune with spirituality than like dogs? Like, or do you think that they're both are aware?
I think they
Like,
might be in tune in different ways because
yeah.
their senses and their brains are different. So they might, a cat might see a certain aspect of a thing a little more easily than a dog, whereas a dog might see, because dogs are mostly like scent, right? And cats are mostly
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
hearing and vision, right? Um,
Mhm.
so that, yeah, I think they just interact, like something a dog might see or perceive, a cat might not, and vice versa.
Yeah.
Who knows? Because, one of the things I've learned, like listening to all these podcasts and reading all these books about the paranormal is that like people have a tendency to generalize a lot of things. You know what I mean? Like religious people might say, "Oh, anything paranormal is a demon," or some
Mhm.
people might say anything paranormal is an alien. You know,
Mhm.
or all ghosts are disembodied spirits who never crossed over. Residual hauntings don't matter because it's just, like people like to generalize things, and
Yeah, yeah.
I try to avoid that as much as I can
Right.
because reality is
Yeah.
never so general like that. You can never like
Yeah,
fit things in a box.
exactly. Like we can't really know exactly what it is. Um, I don't know. That's a good way to look at it
Yeah,
too.
that it's not very black and white. There's like that gray area.
Yeah, there's always like, and then every time you think you've got it figured out, someone throws in this new thing, right?
Yes.
Like when I first found out about elementals, I'm like, they're nature spirits too? Just like, what are these now? These are completely different from demons or angels or ghosts or aliens. This is like a whole other thing that
Mhm.
now we got to think about.
Yeah, and that's another thing, like, I don't know how, like, if you're with the cryptid, like the dogman, right? That was like new to me. I was like, what? What do you mean?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
dogman? I was like, isn't that like werewolves from from like Dracula? Like,
yeah,
But it's crazy to think that there's all these different types of being, and even aliens, there's different types, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's
a
crazy.
bunch
I
of
didn't
different
know that. I
types.
thought they were all the same. It's like, oh, the
Yeah.
same dude. But that's crazy. I don't know.
And people assume that like every UFO encounter or every alien encounter, it's all like one race. But I'm like, why can't there be more than one race? Why aren't there like, you know what I mean? Like people tend to like think of UFOs as like it's one group, one race, one
Mhm.
agenda. What if it's like a bunch of different types or civilizations, and they're all interacting. Some are competing, some are cooperating. You never know. Like, for example, there's so many different shapes, right? Tic tac,
Mhm.
ball,
Right.
triangle, pyramid. Maybe they're all different
Yeah.
groups.
Yeah. I mean, I just don't know because I think there was a man like in Dave Scott's, that he was being interviewed and he was saying that they weren't bad, right?
Hmm.
And I was like, well, but what about like these people that have experiences, like horrific experiences of being abducted and taken and being, like tested on and all these things? And so how can you say per se that they're good, all good, like, or maybe they just, to them that's not a bad thing. I mean, I don't know. You'd start thinking about all this stuff and you're like, okay, I don't know. Like it's just like,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
ongoing. So many
yeah,
questions, so little answers.
yeah. And especially too with like the missing 411, right? Like there's so many
Hmm.
things going on there that it can't just be one phenomenon. There could be many different scenarios going on. So I don't know.
I
Yeah,
think every individual case is unique.
Yeah, but it's scary. All of it is
it
scary.
is.
I'm like, I don't want to like see anything. I'm good. Like I'll listen to it, people's stories.
But you
I'll
don't want to see
I don't
anything
want
you
to
can't
see anything. I
explain.
don't want to encounter. Like I'm cool. Like not knowing. Like just share your stories, and I'll be
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
But I know that you've had a few experiences. So I wanted to ask you, how did it all begin for you?
Um, I had experiences very young, lots of nightmares. There was this one house I stayed in as a kid from age probably between 6 until 13, where I think there was paranormal activity. But the thing is, I did not realize it until later on after I started getting into the paranormal, which was, I would say, 2017. I'm still kind of new to all this.
Oh wow, yeah.
Before 2017, I didn't think about the paranormal at all. It was like not even on my radar. I had people tell me like their stories, and I always was open minded about it. I was not like a naysayer because
Mhm.
the people who told me these stories I knew, and I knew they had no reason to lie. But I never really gave it much thought until like 2017, and then one day I just realized, holy crap, all of this is real. I had that sudden like realization, like
Yeah.
it's all real, like all of it's real, right? And then that's when I started getting obsessed and listening to podcasts and reading and looking online and just getting obsessed with the topic. I have a
Wow.
tendency to do that. Like I'll randomly get obsessed with topics for like a
Mhm.
year or so, and then I'll move on to another topic and get obsessed about that. And I kind of have a tendency to do that. But yeah, I think I've had experiences, but I always kind of like didn't give it much thought until 2017 when I was living in North Carolina with a buddy of mine. We're staying in an apartment, and this apartment had activity. And it wasn't the activity itself that made me think about the paranormal. Actually, it was me sitting in my buddy's restaurant just watching Travel Channel. That was it. That was like the click
Wow.
where I just kind of sat there, watched TV, and I was like, holy crap, ghosts are real.
Really?
That was it.
So do you think that maybe it was like, the experiences you had prior to that moment kind of led to that moment where you were like, everything
Uh,
I experienced was
it
probably.
was it was more like that moment made me review all the things that happened because okay, so when I was a little kid at this house from age 6 to 13, my dad was a very violent drunk. Like he would just get drunk every day and just go off the handle, right? Before living at that house and after we moved out, nothing. He was fine. He was like the best dad, the best husband. We moved out when I was 13, and he just like all of a sudden just completely turned his life around. He stopped fighting with my mom, got really involved in church, became, he stopped drinking. And even when he drank, he wouldn't be. And it was like all of these weird, messed up experiences and all this turmoil in my family only happened when I was living in this house. Before we moved there and
Mm.
after, nothing. And then I was like thinking back, I was like, I do remember in elementary school always having nightmares every single day.
And it was do you think it was related to the house?
I think it was related to the house.
What?
And then there was a lot of fighting. My mom and my grandma would fight all the time. Like people would fight, but then after we moved out, nothing. Just poof, gone.
That's
It
crazy.
was
But
weird.
nobody noticed it? Like, they didn't.
Well, with the nightmares, like I would often get like sleep paralysis. I would like feel like there was this one hallway that always gave me the weird feelings. But then that was I always kind of attribute that to like it's in my own head. Even as a
Mhm.
little kid,
Yeah.
when I would have bad nightmares, I didn't think it was anything paranormal. I just thought, well, I shouldn't have eaten before bed or something, or like I shouldn't have watched that scary movie or whatever. But I always thought it was like my fault I was getting nightmares, or it was my fault that this one corridor in this house kind of freaked me out. So I never
Wow.
gave it much thought. And then like when I even when my dad like became like a great dad after we moved out, I didn't give him much thought. In my mind growing up, I just thought he found Jesus because
Hmm.
he became like a church elder, and so I thought. But then like as I got older, and then after 2017, when I had my realizations about the paranormal, I thought back on it. I was like, you know what? It's weird that it all happened in this one house. And then as soon as we
Yeah.
moved out, it's like everything changed. The nightmares stopped. Dad stopped drinking so much. He became like a really nice guy and stopped arguing with my mom. I just kind of pieced it all together at the end. So
Wow.
my experiences when I was young did not lead me to what happened in 2017. It was more like what happened in 2017 made me look back and I was like, there was something up with that house.
Yeah, definitely. That's what it sounds like. That's scary. And you think like things like that, especially like a house,
Yeah.
something where that you call that you live in and you spend your time in and your emotions and everything. And it having that type of power over your household and yourself,
Yeah.
it's a scary thought, right?
Hmm.
Because it's
Yeah.
supposed to be a safe place. And so why does it get to that point? What happens to these places that it just becomes
Yeah.
like,
I mean, it reminds me of Amityville Horror.
yeah, it's creepy.
Did you
That's
ever find out the history of the home? If anything
Never.
happened?
Never. It was in like some suburb in New Jersey, South Brunswick. Um, yeah, it was just a regular two-story. It was like an older building.
mhm.
I'd say it was probably made in like the 50s or 60s. Um, yeah, it was just strange. It was so strange because I remember my early childhood very well, and I just remember everything being hunky dory, happy childhood up until age 6, and from 7 to 13, I still had plenty of good memories. I had good times, but it
Yeah.
was just a lot of like bad stuff. All of a sudden, was just crammed in this one period of time. Then I moved out, and everything was good again.
Wow. And like for us, because we've lived in two homes that,
Mhm.
like, of course we've lived in other homes, but like two homes specifically that we kind of um would say that had energy. The first one, it was kind of weird because we kind of like had
Yeah.
a lot, like you said,
Yeah,
like
I
things
feel like
happen.
there was definitely more activity there.
But when we moved from that house and we moved to the recent one where my parents live, this recent one has like a murder happened in this house.
Really?
Yeah, and it was in the news, so I pulled up like the archives and I saw the article and everything. So, but the energy of this house wasn't comparable to the other one, which the
Yeah.
other one we didn't know of anything happening there. But it always had like a weird energy, like a weird vibe.
Hmm.
Um, and to this home, like, of course, the man that was murdered there, people would see him, he would like hang out, he would
Yeah.
open doors. Um, but it was not aggressive, like it wasn't anything to where, oh, he's, it's starting to hinder upon us.
Hmm.
Um, but once we had it blessed, like we had a priest come out, he blessed it, and then we had like a service for him, like a little mass thing for him, and after
Hmm.
that it subsided.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It's kind of scary, like kind of it was my parents were mad. When they found
Hmm.
out, they were like, "Wow, I wouldn't have bought this house if I would have known." But we didn't find out till years later that that had
Yeah,
happened.
and the creepy thing, right? Like creepy part of the story was that like when we were remodeling and we there was carpet right in the living room, we removed the carpet and it had like the old carpet and we like it was stained and we're like that's weird
Yeah.
and we removed it and like underneath like the concrete area were like these big stains and we were just like that's weird, maybe they just spilled something, you know. And it wasn't even that. Like that was like the murder scene.
Yeah.
What did you find out about the murder, if you don't mind me asking?
He was murdered by his son. His son shot him
Yeah, with the shotgun,
in the
I
head.
think.
Ooh.
And he was
Yeah.
in the living room. He was sitting down and
He was like watching TV in his recliner, and his son came up from behind and like shot him up here. And he, of course, he died on the scene, but it was a big conspiracy like between the mom and
I think
the
it was
lover.
yeah, the lover.
She had like a
Because the father had life insurance.
yeah.
Mm.
So they
So
kind of
they
conspired.
basically conspired to murder him, and they kind of this kid, I think he was 16. And so they kind of brainwashed him to think that the dad was evil, that he was molesting his sister and he needed to do something about it. You need to protect me and your sister because your dad's evil. And so he resorted to, killing his father. And so he went to prison. As far as I read, he and the mom went to prison. Um,
Hmm.
but I think he was already, he's been out now, I think. Um, I don't know how long he was they gave. I
I
think
think
they
they gave him like 30 years, I think.
yeah, but
Damn.
yeah, it was pretty rough, man. And you can see the picture of our house and everything. And I was
Yeah,
like,
we're like, oh, it
I showed
really
it to my
was
parents.
here.
They were pissed. They're like, let's sell this house.
Did you? So
But
it took place in the living room.
yes,
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Do you get any specific like feelings when you're on the exact spot where he got shot?
I don't know. I feel like just knowing that that happened kind of just like gives like the chills
yeah.
where I'm like,
Mhm.
I don't want to be here for too long, you know?
My dad had experiences like he said that they would move, like he would be like in a hammock and they would move it like outside in the backyard. But when it comes to that room, I've had a few people that
Yeah.
told us
Some guests.
that there was a man in there and that one of my aunts told us that he grabbed her by the ankle while she was
Okay.
asleep. My grandpa, he sees him a
Yeah,
lot. He's the one that sees him the most.
yeah.
Um
He would be like, "Who's that man sitting over there in the living room?"
yeah, like he'll walk from like his room, the master bedroom to the kitchen and then from the
Yeah.
kitchen to that living room. So he's always
He's kind
just
of like just yeah, like roaming around the house. But yeah, my
yeah.
grandpa would see him a lot and our sister, right?
Yeah, our older sister.
And he doesn't seem like a bad guy though. He's just kind of there.
Yeah, no, he's never like my grandpa. He said that he didn't seem like a bad. He's just like it's I. He used to think it was my dad, so he would always be like, "Why is your dad always sitting in the table?" And my mom's like, "No, he's at work. Like, what are you talking about?" So, but nobody's ever said like he gives me like an evil vibe or like he's.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I feel like he's kind of just I don't know, like
Lingering
in
or
time, like he's just time
yeah.
stopped. Like I
Yeah,
don't know.
that's what it seems
I
like.
don't know. Like I've for me, like I've always tried to block stuff like that. Like I've never really because I would sleep in that room because so that living room, we turned it into a bedroom one time, like when I
Yeah.
was
Okay.
living there, of course. And so I would sleep in that room. We didn't know back then that if somebody had died there, otherwise I wouldn't have been there. But I never felt anything. I never saw anything. If I did
Hmm.
hear things, I would brush it off as, oh, it's something outside. It's one of the pets, whatever. But no, it was never anything scary. Yeah. But
Okay.
our dogs were very in tune with it though. Like we had a
Yeah.
dog that would always bark at that spot. Like always we would be barking. And so
Hmm.
one time I decided to take a picture and then there was like an orb. I just caught an orb. Yeah. But I don't know.
Okay.
I'm like, I don't I don't wanna, like, do I tried an EVP once, I think, but I
Yeah.
didn't catch anything.
But I think the house prior to that, I think that the vibe there was a little more like intense,
Yeah.
and you can feel it. You know, it made you not want to be there, right? Like alone.
Yeah, no. That house was weird. It had a
And
Yeah.
weird feeling.
the your previous house you would say was older. Do you think the building was older?
Mm,
I don't know. That's a good
that is a
question.
good question.
They might be around the same age.
Yeah.
I
Do you
don't
know,
know.
like, was it in like a different type of neighborhood? Like, what kind of neighborhood was it? Like,
This
Different
Oh no,
city.
yeah, there was a different city. Yeah, it was like the one that was weird. That one was in LA. We lived
Yeah.
in LA and then we moved here to Central California. And so now um like that house, it was in a very like we lived in
It was pretty busy, right?
busy
Like
neighborhood, yeah, and it wasn't the best place to
hmm,
live. It was very like
it wasn't a big
dangerous.
street. Like it was, you know, it wasn't a big street, but it was still like busy,
Yeah.
right? Like but yeah, it was, I think, you know, the energy there was just creepy.
And it was
It
not,
was
yeah, it was
scary.
not multiple,
hmm.
like multiple people would feel weird about that
Yeah,
house.
it wasn't just us,
And
right?
I remember when she was little, she would tell me that she would see a kid in in my room. She's like, "There's a little kid right there, and he wants me to play with him." Right.
Hmm.
And so she told me that, and then one of our uncles would say he would always see a little kid running around the house.
Yeah.
So
And
I don't,
our older sister saw him
and she
too.
would hear him too, Candy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then the creepy thing was like that I remember was one time I was like in the bathroom and I was trying to get out and it wouldn't let me out. Like it
Hmm.
wouldn't let me open the door. And I thought it was my sister and I'm like, "Stop playing with me. I'm getting scared." And like it was nobody.
Yeah.
And I was like, who was pushing the door if there was nobody there, you know?
So it
Yeah.
So
didn't.
to me that was really creepy.
So it wasn't like it was locked. It was like something was like pushing with weight against the other
Yeah,
side.
because I was able to open the door, but it was just pushing it so that I
Wow.
wouldn't get out. And I was like, that's why I figured it was somebody. And to me, that was just like the creepiest thing.
Hmm.
And then there was another experience where one of my cousins and my aunt saw like a vase, right? Lift up in midair and just drop, right?
Yeah.
And they both saw it. And I was like, that is so creepy. So just like a bunch of things like that, where it
Maybe
wasn't just one person seeing this.
maybe it was LA because LA is pretty densely populated and you got a lot of people coming in and out, right? You got a lot of out of
Yeah.
towners moving to LA. So like,
Yeah.
one of the things I've learned was that sometimes it's not the house that's haunted. Sometimes it's like the entire neighborhood or the street or the block.
Really?
Mm.
And you know what? Now that you say that, there was a lot of people that like would get shot like in that street. Remember?
Yeah,
Like,
it
Yeah.
was
yeah, and then there was like bad accidents in that street, and it's not a big street. It's
it's
like
not.
neighborhood.
It's like a neighborhood
And there would be
street.
people like crashing, like bad crashes. Like it was so weird. I don't know. I believe that. Like if there was if it's the neighborhood, the whole block, man, I don't know. The whole thing was creepy.
I've heard numerous stories where like something happens in one house, but then the haunting occurs in like the next door house. Just like
Oh,
or like down the street, or like every house on that street is that then experiences activity.
that's crazy.
So that's why I always say, like, if you're looking to find out about the history of like maybe some kind of paranormal activity that you're experiencing, like find out the history of the area first before you get into the history of the house, because there might be
Right.
something in the history of the area that might explain
Have
things as
something to
well.
do with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I was kind of like I found out randomly about this house. One of my friends from work, I was at a job site and they just told me, "Oh, you live in that murdered house." I was like, "What?"
Mm.
What do you mean murdering? Like, what do you mean? And then he told me the name of the guy and everything, looked it up, and sure enough, it popped up. So I was like, wow, that's crazy. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't live there anymore. Eileen does.
Yeah, but nothing
So
happens there. I think it's chill. I just don't want to hang out there, you know, too long.
she's
You
like, "Can I
know,
come over?"
Yeah,
it,
luckily there's two living rooms, so I'll hang out at the other living room. you know.
Do you ever get like weird dreams there or anything
I
like that?
do.
You do?
Yeah.
Yeah, I always have like weird dreams. That's true. Like even nightmares.
You know what? I used to have bad nightmares there too. Now that I remember that.
Yeah,
Now that you're talking about it, I'm like, oh
and
yeah,
it'll like, and it's crazy because it'll happen like it won't be like, oh, I just had a nightmare this day. It'll be like a whole week of nightmares, and I'll just be like, man, I'm tired of having nightmares, man. Like I want to have a good dream, you know. So it'll be like things like that,
that's
and
crazy.
it'll make me think, definitely, you know, like why am I having so many nightmares? You know, I want to have
That's
pleasant
crazy.
dreams.
I like
But yeah,
nightmares actually. I like it when I get them.
Really?
Yeah. Because I used to get them so often, all the time, that I kind of, I guess, I don't know, in a way, I guess I got kind of used to them. So I started getting lucid. And then once you get lucid, like when you go lucid in your dream, you can kind of control the dream because you realize that you're dreaming. And now when I have a nightmare, I could just fight back and then I win. And then I wake up feeling like really good about myself.
Really?
So I'm
So how
like,
do you get to that point? How do you get to start lucid dreaming?
honestly, I don't know how. It's just, for me, it just happened so often. I think it was
Yeah.
just kind of repetitions because it was happening every day. Like it was like affecting my grades. Like my teachers would
Wow.
complain to my parents that I was like falling asleep in class.
And you know what? Like that happened to my husband one time, but he said that it was scary because he kept waking up in a dream. So he was asleep and he woke up and then he said weird things started happening and he would pinch himself. He's like, I couldn't feel it. So I would like go back to sleep and wake up again and I was in
Mhm.
another dream. So I don't know if that's the same thing or if that's just something else, but he said that, oh, like maybe sleep paralysis, maybe. I don't
Sleep
know.
paralysis is different, and I used to get that a lot,
Oh,
a lot.
really?
Yeah, a lot, a lot. Um,
So how did you get like how did that stop?
yeah. How did you get out of them?
well, there were two things that I used to do. One of the things that I read somewhere was that when you find yourself in sleep paralysis, the first thing you want to try to do is wiggle your finger, right? And then once you're able to wiggle your finger, the way I try to imagine it is, imagine if like your fingernail is like a knife and your body is wrapped in cellophane and you're using like your pinky finger to like try to cut a hole open into it. And then once you manage to
Mm.
do that, you can kind of bust out. Um, there were other times where the other thing that I learned to do with sleep paralysis is to give in, meaning like, okay, so like if your body's like this, right? And then the sleep paralysis is preventing your body from getting up, right? You can't go up. I always tell myself, then go down, like kind of give in, right?
Hmm.
The sleep paralysis is like a thing on top of you that's holding you down. Imagine like you're underwater and there's ice above and you can't break through the ice. That's what it feels like, right? So instead of constantly trying to go up, just go the opposite direction. And then I would just drift into sleep.
Mm.
But the thing is, like, the problem when I was young was that the reason why people don't do that is because they feel scared. There's like this feeling of terror, and it's like a weird terror. It's like someone injects a fear drug into your veins, right? It's like there's no reason. It's like a physical sensation of fear. So people think, or I used to think as a little kid, that if I fell asleep at this point, then I would have like the worst nightmare. So I try everything in my power to get out of that sleep paralysis. But then once I got older and I was able to go lucid, so like for me, I'm like now it's like, okay, I'm sleep paralysis right now. That's not even a word, but oh well. I'm paralyzed right now, and I'll give in, I'll drift into sleep, and I'll probably get a nightmare. But you know what? I'll be lucid, and I'll be ready for it.
Wow. So do you still have these lucid dreams?
Um, the last one was probably a few years ago, and the last time I had a lucid dream was interesting because it wasn't a nightmare. I was just lucid. It was like a regular dream,
Mhm.
and I had, no reason to go lucid, but I just did. So when I was lucid, I stopped the dream. I was like, you know what? Let's have some fun because I'm lucid now. I'm in control. So I just made an announcement. I was like, if there's any demons or ghosts or whatever entities that's out there that hears me, open invitation. Come on in. Let's have a party. I'm out of practice. I want to practice my dream kung fu. Bring it. And then the next thing I remember, I was in a corridor, right? You remember that scene from The Shining where he's like, oh wait, no, you didn't watch The Shining. Never mind.
No,
where
but
where
I
he sees the two little
Yeah. You know how
Oh,
he's like in
okay.
this like hallway, this long hallway, and there's all these doors on the side?
Yeah.
That's where my dream took me, and all of a sudden, all at once, all the doors open, and all these black masses and grotesque things, they all came out at once, and I remember immediately feeling absolutely terrified. But then because it was a lucid dream, I was like, okay, it's my turn. And then I just spent the rest of the dream just fighting them off.
what? That's scary.
It was fun.
I'm like, no, I don't know. I don't, I see, I'm good with like no experience. Like, and I think that for me, like, I block things out because I want to block them out. Like, I don't want to experience it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, I don't want to know. Like, I don't want to feel it. I don't want to see it. I don't want to like have no experiences happen. Like, I'm cool. But, I like to hear about them. Like,
Yeah,
it's
it's
interesting. Yeah. And so, and especially if you're going through it, like to know, like, oh, that's a trip.
Yeah.
It like trips me out. And people
See,
like, even like with Roth, he's on here, like on the
mhm,
chat, like where he could like remote view and stuff. Like that's
mhm.
super cool. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Um, and like I would hear about that and I'm like, I don't even know what that is, but it sounds super cool. And then like once he would like talk about it, I was like, oh wow. And it's kind of like, is it kind of like you're in a dream and you can, or you can see things in your mind? Is that what it is? I don't know if I'm right about that, Roth.
Mm.
Cause
Oh, you're talking about remote
like,
viewing?
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I have no remote viewing experience. I've never done it myself. I did have one weird experience like meditating when I was in Hawaii, where it was like something just flashed in an image in my brain. And,
Mm-hmm.
I jumped out of well, okay. So I was on a family vacation. This was like right around 2017, actually, when I kind of had that realization, maybe 2018
Mm-hmm.
now that I think about it. So I went on a family vacation, my parents and my brother and I. We go to Hawaii and we're at a resort, and I'm not able to go into water because I had some kind of like skin allergy at the time. So I'm just walking around the resort. They had like this little meditation area that was outdoors, like under like a nice looking tree overlooking the ocean. So I was like, well, I can't do anything else. I might as well just meditate, right? And on the plane ride there, someone had given me a book about astral projection. And I was just kind of reading it on the plane. And I was like kind of like, okay, let's give it a try. So, I get into my meditation and I'm pretty experienced with it because I went through this phase where I was like very into Zen Buddhism and
Mm-hmm.
spent like some time at a Zen monastery, like a few days. And all you do is just sit there all day and meditate. So I know how to meditate. And then I was trying what I learned from the astral projection book. And then all of a sudden, bam, it was like a 2-second video clip just came into my brain. And I just like jumped out of my chair. I was like, what the hell was that? It
What?
was like 2 seconds long. And I was like,
Really?
yeah. And I remember it. It was first person perspective. It was me looking down at a pair of sandals, walking on a cobblestone road. And then it looks up and I'm looking at a ziggurat. A ziggurat is like a Mayan temple. You know how like Mayan temples are like they look like pyramids, except they're like kind
Yeah,
of
they're flat.
platform.
Yeah.
Yeah. It looked like that, but it was like in like a desert environment. It looked like a Mayan temple, but at a desert. And it was first person perspective. I remember looking down my sandals as I'm walking towards this thing, and I'm like looking up the road and at this temple, and that's it. The whole thing was 2 seconds long. It was crystal clear. It felt like somebody like remote zapped like an image in my brain. I was not expecting it. I like jumped out of my chair all startled. I was like, what the heck is going on right now?
That's crazy.
So then I was like, I don't know what the hell that was. So I was like, maybe it was just some random thing. I was like getting in the zone or whatever. um, so I go back to meditating and I do it again. I was like, oh, that's probably just a fluke, right?
Yeah.
This time, instead of a video image, it's like a photograph of like a little it was like a little Asian girl, probably like 3 or 4 years old, black and white, looked like it had been taken in like the 40s or 50s, and it was like a portrait, like a child's portrait,
Mhm.
like like you take at the portrait studio, but it was like in the
Yeah.
40s and 50s, so it looked very like black and white, and it was just like this little girl taking a portrait. She was kind of like this, like 3 or 4 years old. But that picture zapped in my brain again, and then like again, I jump out of my chair. I was like, that was so random and so unexpected. I was
Right?
like, I want nothing to do with this, right? So like, I just got up and walked away. But it was weird. It was like,
So do you think that's more of like an astral projection type deal
but like,
or
I was trying to, based off what I
yeah.
read in the book, but I don't feel like I astral projected. I feel like something projected into my brain, if you know what I
Right.
mean.
That's crazy. And so what about during like your meditations? Like how did you feel? Like what was that experience like?
Like Zen meditation.
Yeah.
Um, it's they're very specific about like how you position your body. Like
Mhm.
none of your muscles should be activated except for the ones that are keeping your posture. So like you can't have any muscles activated in your face or in your fingers. You got to learn to relax, and it's a lot harder to do than you might think, because like if you really examine your muscles carefully, you'll notice that you'll be unconsciously like activating your brow muscles, or you might be like
Mhm.
clenching your jaw or like flaring your nostrils or whatever, right? So to conscientiously like turn all of that off, it does take some practice. But once you get in that zone, the way I would describe it, it's like at first you think of yourself as your body, right? Then you start to feel, after a while, you start to feel like you are just a brain inside of a head, and what you are is the brain. And then the deeper you go, you feel like you're like this little thing, and everything you are is like this little consciousness ball that's inside your brain, and everything outside in your body and your bones and your skin and everything, this is just like a machine that it operates. And
Wow.
that's kind of like the zone you get into. And
Yeah.
it's hard because you got to train yourself to not think, and it's hard to not think.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's
It
real hard.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I've done meditation, but it's more like spiritual
Hmm.
meditation and I've had like spiritual encounters, I want to say.
Yeah.
And they were very powerful. So I'm like, I think that people are capable of doing these things, like with the, like Roth was saying with remote viewing or what you were saying, where you could see these things that were just projecting, that you had no idea what they were, but they're happening. So, and
Hmm.
it's kind of like a trip, like, I don't know, I think it's kind of scary in a way. Because you don't
Yeah.
know how far it could go or what the capabilities of it are. Like
Yeah.
it's crazy, but it's interesting, you know?
I did learn that like the meditation for astral projection is a little different from like the Zen or the Buddhist
Mhm.
meditation. Because astral projection meditation, like from what little I read in that book, I didn't, I'm not an expert, or I'm just like a newbie at this. But I remember it saying that unlike regular meditation, you want to like focus like your eyes as if you're looking like 6 feet ahead.
Mm.
Because in Zen Buddhism, they tell you to let your eye muscles go. So what happens when a lot of people let their eye muscles go? They tend to go a little bit cross when you have your eyes closed, and you're not supposed to close your eyes all the way. You're supposed to leave it like just relax your eyelids.
Mhm.
Um, so they usually wind up like a little bit open, and you wind up looking down a bit. That's just your eyes' natural resting state. With like astral projection, you want to like like have your eyes closed, but you want to have your eyes focused as if they were looking ahead.
Oh, okay.
So you know how like when you close your eyes like really hard, you could see like little pins and needles, right?
Mhm.
Mhm.
I remember reading that it said that when you focus on the pins and needles at a certain point, once you get deep into meditation, you'll notice like a black hole in the middle. And the idea is to try to push your consciousness through that black hole and come out on the other side, and you're astral projecting.
Wow. It
Wow.
sounds kind of difficult too, though.
Yeah, I
Like
mean, I
it
only
takes
tried it once, and then I had that experience. I was like, I ain't doing this again. No,
you're like, I'm good.
no. I think afterwards I went up and got a snow cone. No, no, no. I got a Bloody Mary. That's what it is. I was like, you know what? I'm getting a Bloody Mary. Screw
I need
this.
some alcohol.
Yeah,
That's cool. Wow. Have you had any like UFO or cryptid experiences?
none, none, and it's
Really?
it's weird. Um,
Would you like to have an experience like that though?
I mean, I used to say this a lot as a joke, but I've literally never heard of any Asian person ever being abducted, ever, never, ever, literally
That's
never. And I've looked. I've like looked for like paranormal stories in China, paranormal stories in Korea, right? And there's lots.
You
There's
know what? I don't think aliens would want to take Mexicans either. They'll be like, nope, I
have
don't.
you
Nah, we're good.
have I ever heard of a Mexican person being abducted? I have heard of an Indian, like a from India, Indian person being abducted.
Uh
Heard
huh.
of a guy from Italy being abducted,
That's
but
crazy, right?
never heard of any Asian guy being abducted.
So you're like, I'm good. Like, I don't have to worry about it. But see,
No,
that's
actually, no, I'm offended. I'm like, yo, what's up with
really,
us? You're not interested in our DNA? What am I, garbage over here? Man, these racist
yeah, no.
aliens.
I'll be like, "God, thank God." I mean, we've seen, like I want to say it was a UFO craft, maybe,
Yeah,
when we were younger in LA.
in that
All
same
right, like in
house.
Mhm.
that same house. But why LA? Like it's we were in the middle of a big old city. Like, why would we
Yeah, it
see
was odd.
this crazy like craft hovering in the middle of the night? I don't know. And that's not all though. We had this really bad experience
Oh,
as
with the
well.
chupacabra?
Do you know what the chupacabra
I
is?
know what the chupacabra is.
Okay. Eileen, you want to
Yeah,
talk about
well,
it?
he went there. He went to
She thinks it's funny, but it's
No, it's
not.
not
Like,
funny. It's not funny, but it's just crazy to think that that really happened, Because I don't know, it just seems so like mythical, but
Wait, you
he
saw
did
the
show up.
chupacabra?
we didn't see it, no.
No,
But
we
Oh,
didn't see it, but my uncle kind of saw it.
one of our uncles said he saw it. Because here's the thing.
It's a duplex.
okay.
They were saying that we the night prior to whatever happened, um he's we were talking about the chupacabra because that was the time where it was like big,
Yeah,
it
he
was
was
killing
trending.
everything, it was
Yeah.
like rogue. And so my dad drew him. He drew like a little sketch of it and he put it in the fridge and they were making fun of it. You know, they're like,
Yeah,
"Ah, this is all fake." So that night
he shows up.
he shows up like my uncle, he's so in the
He's in the
backyard.
yeah, but he was in the other house, right? Because it's a duplex,
In the
right?
backyard, yeah, we had bunnies and we
Mhm.
had chickens and that was it, right?
Yeah,
Chickens and
bunnies and
bunnies.
chickens.
And so my uncle has a window that faced the backyard where those animals are.
Mhm.
He said he heard something, like some ruckus
And then
outside,
he
and he
saw
looked out the
something.
window and he said he saw a little creature that he said it looked like a little dinosaur. That's
Hmm.
what he said it looked like, because it had spikes and it had like a tail and it was like running. It just ran.
Okay.
So that night, I think um he just said like I saw it, whatever. Didn't
Yeah.
think much. Like he was just it's probably a dog. And so the next morning they wake up early. My dad goes out to feed the animals and they're all mutilated. Like all of
Ooh.
them. There's some on top of the trees and these trees are very tall,
Yeah,
like
they're
tall
like
trees.
pine trees.
There's no blood anywhere, but there's like body
Whoa.
parts,
Yeah,
heads.
that was the weird part.
Yeah, there was heads
And you saw all
everywhere.
this.
Huh?
Yeah.
You saw
He
this.
just saw the creature. He didn't see
I
when it
mean,
was
like the
happening.
bodies, but you saw the
Yeah,
Yeah,
bodies.
but
I saw it. Yeah.
everybody
And
saw it,
Yeah.
right? And the weird thing was that he had like some special cages that he had made for them, which were like very heavy cages.
Yeah, because my dad was like
He was a
a
welder.
welder for
Hmm.
really like for years. And so he built these special cages that nobody can get into. I couldn't even open them.
Yeah, because they were like they were heavy. It was a
Yeah.
pretty
And so
heavy.
one of them you open up, right? Like it was like
Mhm.
this way, and the other one you had to slide. And so he said that when we went out there, all the animals were gone, like they were all dead. And then my dad said he found a chicken like 2 miles away from where we lived in the street. And so, but of course, no blood. It was just like
Yeah.
There was
body
no
parts,
blood
no
It
drops
whatsoever.
of
was, yeah,
blood,
it was the
no
weirdest
drops of.
thing.
And so
That
we
is
were like,
weird.
my dad's like, oh no, it was a chupacabra because we were making fun of him. He came and like killed everything. And so we never like really figured out what it was because it was just so odd. Um,
Yeah.
but it killed everything. I was
But
Yeah,
sad.
and
your uncle saw what he saw.
He saw what he saw, but he said that when he saw it, because we asked him, and he said he saw it. He said he saw it looking like a little dinosaur, like it was small, like two
yeah.
feet.
Hmm.
And then he said that it turned that it. Then he saw like an
Like
orb,
a,
like
yeah,
it turned into
like
a
a little
ball.
like ball that would spin.
Yeah,
Wow.
maybe
And
maybe it was Sonic,
it was Sonic. It was Knuckles. But
Hmm.
but
the crazy thing was that like when he bought a ranch, our cousin saw that same ball. Yeah.
Yeah.
that's
So
weird.
I don't know, and that house was creepily haunted too, right?
Yeah,
You know what it is?
So
I think it's because he challenged it in a way, right? He drew it. He was
I
like, you
think
know, this
yeah he
chupacabra
drew.
ain't doing things to me, and this chupacabra is like, oh really? Oh really? And you went out of your way to draw me? Now you're gonna put me on
Yeah,
your refrigerator and make fun of me? Oh, okay, I see how it is.
and he's like, I'm gonna kill your animals
Yeah.
inside their cages.
it
Oh,
was
and
And
you got
yeah,
creepy.
chickens in your backyard? Well, what am I gonna do about this now? You know?
Yeah, it was
yeah,
creepy, dude. Like I didn't know what to make. Nobody knew what to make of it. I mean, who do we call? It's not like we're gonna call the animal control and be like, "Hey, our animals have been killed by I don't know what the
yeah, we
chupacabra."
don't know what happened. Yeah,
But it was
it's
really sad because I had like it was like 6 bunnies and
Mhm.
like
yeah,
we had a few chickens, but I just found like their little heads and like I remember seeing it. So and I thought it was odd. And my dad would just say, it was just the dogs. Like that's what they kind of like in their head. They were like, no,
yeah.
it's just the neighbor's dogs who came and got a hold of them and killed them. And
But but he still thought it was strange that like they were still dead inside their cages, and he's like he knew for sure that the dogs couldn't get to the cages and lift it up.
Yeah, you
So
probably knew you
it
weren't
was
buying
odd.
that. Like dogs have a
yeah,
Yeah,
tendency to leave a mess. Like there should be blood.
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
And so and the cage had scratches on it too. So I don't know. It was weird.
Damn,
It
creepy.
was really creepy.
chupacabra. This
See, I
was in
get like
LA?
the chills. Huh?
This was in LA?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It was in
Oh,
like the San Fernando Valley, LA.
and
Like it was
damn.
like right like there's populated like very
I heard
heavily
of
yeah.
the
So
populated.
it was
chupacabra in
odd.
Texas and like Mexico, but I never heard of it being in LA.
Two different species called the chupacabras.
Oh, to a blood diet because yeah, they seem sucked out, right?
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah,
He's a nocturnal.
um I remember spiked reptoid looking creature. Well, that's and another
That
dimension.
sounds
Well,
like
that
it.
explains why it turns into a ball.
Mm-mm.
And it was at night, so it does
Ugh,
fit.
Yeah,
that's so creepy. But yeah, those are like some of like I think that sums up our experiences.
yeah, and
Like
then
we thankfully we've never had like any really except for me when I saw that cloak that weird thing, but I think those have been like our experiences that we have had that I can remember that are like
yeah,
the creepiest ones. But I'm good, man. I don't want to have
Well,
one.
okay. I was thinking, should I tell you about my craziest experience?
yes,
Okay.
Wait, how bad is it? I'm like,
um, it's not bad. It is kind of long though, so you're gonna have to bear with me.
okay.
I actually told this on Sean G's. I called in a while back, and it was like my
Mhm.
hummingbird story. But I didn't tell the whole story. Not because like, you know, I was trying to hide anything. I felt like it would have taken too long. And I felt like I don't know, when I call into Sean G's, I feel like I have to um, make my time efficient. Otherwise, you know, because there are other people waiting, I want to give other people a chance to call
Oh
in.
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, because you know, with Sean's show, a lot of the people who call in are like first time callers, so I want them the opportunity to, because I want more people to call in. You know,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
damn it,
exactly.
like let me turn on the comments and see who's like, you know, like Sue Ashwell, she's called in, and Maraid's never called in. I'm still waiting on hearing her voice. I want to hear her accent, you know, and like Be Kind is called in, Chica's called in. So like I want to see, I want to sit back and listen to other people calling. I don't want to be the one doing it. Um, but so this story, all right, this one's kind of weird. Um, All right, I'll tell it in all its like wooey entirety. So I started dating this girl around 2017, and also keep in mind this is right around the time I learned what a synchronicity was. I didn't know, never heard of that word before 2017. And then right around that time, I started dating this new girlfriend, and she wants to take me to meet her friends. So she brings me to her friend's barbecue. Right? They're having at their house. On the way there, she tells me that this couple that we're visiting, they had three sons, but the youngest son committed suicide.
Oh.
Unfortunately, he was 14 at the time. Shot himself with his father's gun in his bedroom, sitting on his bed, and this had taken place 6 months prior to the events of this story. So they're still very much in mourning and grieving. And
Mhm.
I guess one of the things that they would do, I came to later find out, was one of the ways that they would try to cope with it is that they would throw like these huge barbecues like every weekend. They turned the entire back. They added like this extension on their deck, and the deck became like essentially a dive bar. Like they turned it into a bar, and all the neighbors would just come there every day. It was a pretty cool hangout spot.
Yeah.
But I was finding out all this on the way there, so I'm like, oh man, that's so sad. I didn't know. So I go to the house, and first thing I notice is like the entire house, like wall to wall, is basically a shrine to this kid. Like his pictures are everywhere. Like I remember the trees in the yard had little plaques on them, like, in memory of such and such. And then they had like, it was just basically the entire property was just a shrine to this kid, right?
Mhm.
And oh, and keep in mind, I had just had my come to Jesus moment with the paranormal. Like I just had like my whole world turned upside down,
Mhm.
like a few months prior to this. And then she later tells me that we have to sleep there. So the first thought in my brain is like, yo, what if something weird
Yeah.
happens, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So when I get to the house, the barbecue is taking place outside. No one ever goes inside unless it's to go into the bathroom. So it was my turn to go to the bathroom, and once I go in there, first thing I notice is I get this weird feeling like I'm walking through cobwebs. It was like statically charged cobwebs. And I had never felt that feeling before. I was like, what is I started doing this on my face. I was like, what is on me? Like I thought I was like literally walking through cobwebs, right?
Yeah.
So I come to later find out that that's like one of the first um like things people notice. They call it static cobwebs or electric cobwebs or something like
Mhm.
that. And I had that feeling and I was like going like just kind of just checking
Taking
myself
it
to
off.
see if there was any cobwebs on me. And then I go into the living room, and their dog is like this 2-year-old pit bull who's like very active and very friendly and very social. She was in the living room by herself. There's an entire party taking place at the house with the back door wide open. There was nothing stopping that dog from going outside and playing with people and begging for food and stuff, right? But this
Right.
dog was in the living room by herself, staring in the corner with its tail wagging, like it wanted to play with something in the corner. And then it would like do zoomies. You know how like they would run around in circles, like around the coffee table, and then stop back at the corner, keep staring at the corner, and then it would stare at me, stare back at the corner. I'm looking at the corner now. I'm like, oh damn, here we go, right?
That's crazy.
So later that night, my girlfriend's like, yeah, we're gonna crash here for the night, and I'm like, where are we crashing, by the way? And she's like, we're gonna crash, and I'm just gonna do a fake made up name. I'll do like Alan, okay? So she's like, we're gonna stay in Alan's old room. You mean the son who? She's like, yeah. I'm like, I don't feel comfortable with that. Weather's real nice. Can we sleep somewhere else? Like, out on the deck. It's real nice. They got like little seats here. I mean, the weather's perfect. Hey, let's sleep out under the stars. When was the last time you did that?
Yeah, how romantic is
I'm trying
that?
to have this conversation with her,
Very
and she's like,
convincing.
"Oh, come on! I sleep in that room every time I'm there, because she would visit every weekend or every other
Mhm.
weekend, and every time that was like her guest room, and she would like sleep there. And she's like, I do it all the time. She's a total skeptic, by the way, atheist, skeptic, so she doesn't believe in any of this stuff. So, and I'm like, she's like, why are you being all weird about this? And I'm like, literally, because I'm very open about I just became open about the paranormal. So I told her
Mhm.
about all the stuff that's happening. And I'm like, yo, something real messed up is gonna happen. I feel like if I sleep there, and I just nah. Can we sleep somewhere else? But then finally the kid's parents got in and they're like, oh come on, just sleep there. It's okay. So now I felt rude if I said no. So I'm like, okay, I have to. Um, and then one of the things I learned about that room is they kept it exactly the same as
When he
how it
was
was when
there.
yeah they try to preserve everything. Same decorations, like his clothes were still in the drawer, all his stuff was still around the room, like it was all of his sheets, it was the same bed, same mattress, and I'm like, thinking to myself, oh my god, not only do I have to sleep in this room, I have to sleep on the very same spot where he died.
That's hard.
The exact spot. And I'm like, come on. So eventually we sleep there. Um, and then I have the weirdest dream I'd say I ever had in my life. And it was not lucid, not at all. I was not aware I was in a dream, but it didn't feel like a dream. I remember most of my dreams, and this did not feel like it because this felt like virtual reality.
What?
Um,
That's crazy.
the way I would describe it is usually my dreams, I remember my dreams. I remember what happens and what I do. But in this particular dream, I was remembering like my individual thoughts, lines of dialogue, full on conversations, like thinking about what I'm going to say before I say it. And this was like virtual reality. Like I was making micro decisions, right?
Wow.
So here's how the dream starts out. Now it gets real weird. So the way the dream starts off, I'm in a huddle position with 5 other people, looking about the same age. Never seen any of them in my life. As a matter of fact, I can make out like details about them, but all their faces were blurred, like on the news or in cops, or like when they don't have permission to show the person's face, they use like the pixelated effect to cover their face.
Mhm.
All 5 people around me, that's what they look like. But the funny thing is, like I had this feeling like I had known them forever. Like this was my crew. This was like my family, right? I remember there was like 3 guys. There was one girl. I remember she had like a black ponytail. One of the gentlemen was African American. I do remember that. There was one other Asian guy, one white guy, and then there was a girl. I can't tell, but I just remember she had a black ponytail. And we were all talking like we had known each other forever. So we're in a huddle position, and they're like asking me, and they're talking to me. They're like, "Okay, you brought us here. What do we got to do?" And I'm basically explaining to them, "Okay, you see that over there? We got to rescue a guy from that building." And we look over, and basically we're in a hellscape. It's like it looks like Mordor from Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, yeah.
Black skies, black mountains, just like looks terrible,
It's
right?
creepy, like yeah.
And on top of like this craggly mountain, there's like this like ancient looking like fort or castle. Like it was a big ugly building, like an old time like castle, right? So one of the partners or one of the people in the group, he starts like complaining. He's like, "Are you serious? You want us to go where?" And then like I'm like, "Yeah, that's what I brought you here for. We're gonna get him." And at this point, I have no idea who we're going to get. All I remember in my brain is I'm here for one purpose.
Yeah,
There's a place over there. There's a person in there that I got to get out of there, and that's my job. I brought you here, and this is what
to
we're gonna.
help.
Yeah.
Right.
And then the one guy was like, "No, this is stupid. This is real stupid." And I'm like, "Why?" He's like, "You understand what's guarding that place?" I'm like, "No." And he's like, "You understand that if we get caught, we could get trapped in there too." And then the other people are like, "Yo, I don't know about this." And I'm like, I'm arguing back and forth, and we're having a full-on conversation. And I remember I'm like literally sitting there and trying to like convince these guys, "Come on, we could do it. We won't get caught. I promise you." All right. So my next memory of the dream, we are inside that building. I don't know how we got in. I just remember it's like we were just like next second we're inside the building. it looks like the dungeonest dungeon you can think of, like a dungeon out of like an old school like RPG, that kind of dungeon, right? Just long hallways, everything's stone, big iron doors, and we're like trying to, and the whole place is like a maze, and we're trying to navigate this maze, and we're walking past all these doors, and I remember in different doors there were different things. Like some doors you wouldn't hear anything. Other doors you would hear like someone crying. Another door you would hear like someone like laughing maniacally. Other doors you would walk by. It was like walking through like an insane asylum where
That's
like
scary.
Arkham Asylum, and then other doors you hear people like talking to themselves, right?
Mhm.
So we're making our way through this maze, and there are these things that are like roaming the hallways. They look like basically the ring wraiths from Lord of the Rings, or like Dementors from Harry Potter. I mean, that's what they look like, right? Just going up and down the halls, and we're trying to like, duck behind corners, hide, right? So we finally get to where we're looking for. And it's a quiet door. I don't know how I knew that was the right one. I just knew this is where we got to be. We opened the door, and inside is like basically a dark cell. And I remember like on the right side there was a bench, and like everything was very poorly lit, but there was like a dark shadow figure sitting on that bench with its head down, like with his head in his hand, like kind of crouched down like this.
Mhm.
And I'm like, this is the guy. We're here. Let's get him. And I'm like, come on, let's go. The guy's not moving. I'm like, come on, let's go. We're here to get you out. Guy's like refusing to go. He doesn't say anything, and it's like all black. I can't make out what he looks like, but then we're like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna drag him. So I'm trying to drag him out. This guy's holding onto the bench. He refuses to leave. And I'm like, come on, help me, guys. And so they're all trying to like pull him apart. This guy's body starts stretching. And then one of the other people that I was with was like, this is pointless. Let's just get out of here. This guy obviously doesn't want to leave. But at this point in my brain, I'm like, we made it this far, damn it. I'm gonna drag this guy out of here, whether he like
Right, yeah.
or not. Right then and then we get caught. It was like a jump scare, and there was like this sudden like shriek, and those like things that were like patrolling were like right up on us, and there was like it was like a really loud piercing sound. We're all like holding our ears really hard, and we're like, and then when we wake up, when we not wake up, but when we open our eyes again, we're in this weird looking room. It looks like a courtroom, but I remember the room was very narrow but very long, and everything was like all dusty looking. But the weird thing about the room was that the ceiling extended up forever. It
Hmm.
was almost like we were at the bottom of a pit or something. And we're sitting there, the five of us and that guy that we're trying to get out. He's in the corner with like his head down. Five of us are in the corner, are in a huddle, and they're like freaking out. They're just like, holy crap, are we being judged right now? And then everyone's like flipping out. Why are we being judged? Right? Because we all
Yeah.
kind of knew, like, this is the court. This is like where you get judged.
Right.
And then we're all like, yo, why are we being judged? We're not the bad guys here. We're not even like, at this point, people are like, we're not even dead. Why are we being judged right now? Right? And I'm like trying to calm everyone down. I'm like, hold on, it's all good. Don't worry. Let me argue for you guys. It's all good. Just calm down. So in walks this. He looked like a kind of like a Santa Claus looking guy. He was like a jolly old guy with like a white hair and a white beard, and he looked like jolly, right? And he was like, and he comes in, he's like, forget about it. You guys are free to go.
Oh, wow.
Just like that. Just like, yeah, don't worry about it. Case dismissed. Don't worry about it. Just go. And we're all like relieved. Like everyone's just like, oh, we thought we were going to be stuck down here, right? So we all look over at the guy we're trying to get out. He's like still like in the corner with his head down. And I asked the judge, well, what about him? Is he free to go? And the judge's like, oh yeah, him too. Yeah, he can go, if he wants. And all of a sudden, this guy came to life, right? Like the color, like you could see like the clothes, like he was wearing white clothes, and he just came to life. And then he started looking like very radiant and very happy. And then like, we saw like a tunnel of light like open up behind him. And then as soon as we saw that, we all kind of went like this. Like we all like covered our eyes, all like five of us, because for some reason we all knew, like, this knowledge was just there, that like the living is not allowed to look into the light.
What?
Wow.
So we
That's
all kind of
crazy.
looked away like this. And then he's like going into the light, but before that, he turns around and he thanks us, right? He's like, "Thank you guys. You didn't give up on me. You helped me, and he's thanking us, and everything's happy, and we're all thanking each other and wishing each other good luck. and and then he was like, and then he said, and this part is where things completely like snapped, because he was like, "Are you gonna tell my parents?" And then all of a sudden, like, everything came back. The memory of the entire previous evening, the barbecue, the knowledge of me sleeping on that bed, like, it all flooded back while I was still in the middle of this dream. So now at this point, I'm lucid towards the end. And now I'm suddenly realizing, you're Alan? Dude,
Yeah.
I'm sleeping on your bed right now. He's like, and then I stop myself. I'm like, I don't mean to sound like racist or nothing, but I thought Alan was like a 14-year-old white kid. Why are you like a 20-something-year-old black guy? And then he's like looking up and down his body. He's like smiling. He's like, "Yeah, I think I like this new body. What do you think?" And I'm like, "I mean, you're a good-looking dude. You look like you're in pretty good shape." Like, I cracked a joke, and he started laughing, and we both like laughed at it. I remember cracking a joke. I remember cracking that joke.
Wow.
We both kind of chuckle at each other, and I'm like, "How am I going to explain this to your dad? What, that your son not only was brought to the light, but he's also going to be reincarnated as a completely different race? Like, how do I explain that to your dad, right?" And then he kind of laughs and he's like, "Yeah, you're probably right." And then he just kind of signs off and crosses. And meanwhile, the whole time we're just trying to like do this the whole time, because I don't want to look directly into the light.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I woke up, I was already awake before my eyelids even opened. Like, I was like knew where I was sleeping before the dream even ended. So like when I woke up, I was like 100% awake and
Awake.
crystal clear. Yeah, it didn't feel like waking up. It just felt like I opened my eyes. Right now, I know this story is long, and I know it sounds like trippy dippy, but here's the thing: for the week, I could not get that dream out of my head. But I told my girlfriend about that dream as we were driving away. About how detailed it was. And she asked me, like, "Do you think you really busted him out?" And I was like, that dream felt so different, but at the same time, like, maybe I was so worked up in my own head
Mm-hmm.
that because I was worked up that I dreamt that. Who knows? Maybe I just made, because I was so focused on it before I
Yeah.
went to sleep.
Yeah.
Maybe it was some kind of like self-fulfilling kind of thought-induced dream, right? I was thinking about that. So, but I was 50-50. At that point, I was very 50-50. I don't know. It could have been either way. Fast forward a couple weeks later. I show up at my girlfriend's apartment. It's Saturday. I just got done with my work week, so we're going to spend a weekend together.
Party time.
And then just out of nowhere, she just says, "Oh, by the way, we're going back to that house again. That
Mm.
place. They're having
Yeah.
another barbecue." And then, like, this was out of the blue. I didn't know it was going to happen. So I was like, "Oh, that's a surprise." So, but, I'm cool. Whatever. Yeah. So she's like, "Okay, will you wait for me in the parking lot?" I was like, "Okay." While she's getting ready, I'm outside in the parking lot smoking a cigarette. And I'm thinking about that dream. So while I'm out there, like, I have my back up against a tree, and I just kind of put my head down. And this is like, I say a prayer. And when I say a prayer, this is probably the first ever prayer I ever said, maybe since I stopped being a Christian, which is like when I was 21. So, and I was 37 at the time, 38. So yeah, almost 20 years since I said a prayer. First prayer in 20 years was basically went like this. I don't know who's listening, if it's God, Jesus, devil, or some ancestor, whatever. I just need, I have this, I just need to know, did that really happen, or was it in my head? That's all I need to know. And I'm okay with, if it was in my head, I'm willing to accept that it was in my head, right? But it felt like I had like this nagging feeling that it actually happened. So with my eyes closed, leaning up against a tree, I'm like, just let me know one thing. Okay. Now, there was a part about this story that I left out, a big important detail. Right? I got to rewind back to that barbecue the first day.
Mhm.
The weird thing about the house was that there were hummingbirds everywhere, like everywhere. I ain't never seen a swarm of hummingbirds just hanging out. I was like ducking for cover. There were like so many. I was like, what is
Hummingbirds,
up?
then they're kind of rare to
Yeah.
see. Like you don't see them very often.
I mean, this
I
place
mean,
was like
not here.
they were like practically flying inside the house, like because they had their door open, and I'm like in the kitchen grabbing something out of the fridge, and there's a freaking hummingbird in the kitchen. I'm like, dude, go outside at least, right? I'm like, this is crazy. So while we're sitting there eating, right, I'm with my girlfriend at the time and one other person, the three of us. We're just like watching all these hummingbirds, and I'm like, you ever see all these hummingbirds before? They're like, nah. And then I'm like, I was just trying to make like my little observational humor joke. I was just like, you know what the funny thing is about hummingbirds is that no one ever sees what they look like when they're not hovering. You only ever see them when they're hovering, but you never see them when they're like just sitting there, like on a branch or in a nest. I bet
Mhm.
you if I walked past a hummingbird that was just sitting on a branch, I probably wouldn't even think it was a hummingbird because I'm so used to just seeing them hover. Because when you see them
Right.
hover, you're like, oh, there's a hummingbird. And I'm like, I turned to them, I was like, do you guys know what a hummingbird looks like when it's just sitting there? And they all thought about it. They're like, nah, never thought about it. Right. So flash flash forward to when I was saying the prayer, right?
Mhm.
I got my back against the tree. And then I got my eyes closed. I'm like, just give me a single sign, right? This is a week later after those events. Just give me, or 2 weeks later, actually. Wait, actually, no, it was a week. Anyway, when I say the prayer to like give me a sign, the moment I opened my eyes, there was a hummingbird hovering right in front of my face, like this close to my face, just like hovering, like just and looking directly at me. And I was leaning up against a tree, and there was like a branch, and then it like moved over to the branch, and it just sat there, as if to say, "This is what a hummingbird looks like."
What?
Wow.
So then and then it just sat there on this branch, and it was just staring at me, and I'm like, I have my jaw on the ground, I'm like, holy crap, it is real, because that wouldn't have made sense if I hadn't cracked that joke. It was as if it heard my joke and was like, oh, this is what it is.
Yeah, definitely like a sign. Yeah,
Yeah.
you were answered basically.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I was like,
That's
oh,
crazy.
so we really rescued that dude, like the five of us. So the whole time I was thinking, the five of us really did it.
Mhm.
You know what the crazy part about it is? Like we maintained a friendship. Like we would go there like once a month or once every other week, and for a couple of years. And I remember one day, like a year later, I'm hanging out with that kid's mom in the backyard at the same house, and she was like telling me, you know what? That first day we met you, Donnie, remember all those hummingbirds? I was like, yeah. And I was like, why are there so many hummingbirds at your place? She was like, well, because I feel like they carry the soul of my son. You know how hummingbirds are symbolic.
Yes.
Because the weird thing about it was she had like hummingbird pictures all over the house too. So in her mind, she thought that the hummingbirds were like carrying messages from her son. But the whole reason why there were so many hummingbirds was because she set up like hummingbird feeders around the whole backyard. So obviously
Yeah.
there's going to be a bunch of hummingbirds, right?
Right.
But that was her belief. Like she did that with the intention, and she had like this imagery because she had that belief about them communicating from her son. And then like a year later, she tells me, "Remember that first day when we met?" I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "The weirdest thing happened. It's like all the hummingbirds just stopped coming. No matter how hard I tried, no matter like what a feeder I set up, like she kept trying to get them back. And she was like, after that day, they all stopped coming." And I'm like, dude, I didn't tell her that, because how do you tell like mom that story? It's messed up. So I kept that away from like them. That's why I changed the stories. And but then like I'm experiencing this, but I can't tell anyone because the people around me are not into the paranormal. So I'm not
Mhm.
at this point in my brain, I'm like flipping out. Oh my God, I have this secret team of like these unknown people, and we're going into like the afterlife, and we busted this
That's
kid
so
out.
cool. And you know
Wow.
what? Like I believe that that's because in from the beginning, you didn't want to stay in that room. You were like, no.
Hell no. I
And
wanted to
so
stay anywhere
for
else.
for one reason or another, you were pushed to be in that room, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I was,
so it was like as if almost it was meant to happen. In like even with the hummingbirds, like maybe they were there to kind of like, hey, we need help, like, you know? That's
Yeah.
crazy. It's such a
and
wonderful story.
it wouldn't be the last dream I had like that, because remember those 5 people?
Yeah.
A few months later, I'm taking like I think I was taking like an afternoon nap because I remember it still being sunny outside, and I've never had a dream that started inside my room before, ever. Most of my normal dreams involve me like being back in Korea or traveling or whatever, right? Or being in school. I never have a dream that starts with just me in my room as it is, right? But
Mhm.
this dream started me lying in bed with my eyes open. And then there's something standing over me, like looking directly in my face. I was not scared though. Thing is, I felt the opposite. I was like, good to see you, dude. It was those 5 people or the 4 people. And they're like, you up yet? And I'm like, hey guys, good to see you. I mean, like, I wanted to tell them about what happened. They were like, it's my mission now. You got to follow us. And I'm like, I'll go wherever you want. So we had to go on, because remember the first stream was like they were there because of me,
Yeah.
and this time
So
they
do
were.
you yeah, do you think they're kind of like your spiritual, like you guys are kind of like
A team.
spiritual, yeah, like a spiritual
Your
team
soul
or
team, yeah, I
yeah,
100% feel that, because I
that's
remember
so
there's
cool.
that feeling of like
You
it's
know
my
them.
family, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah, like I feel like I've known them for like hundreds of years or thousands of years. Like we've just been like, oh, where have you
That's
been all this time? But I didn't see their faces.
but you have each other's back and you trust each other and,
Yeah, I
you know,
didn't know their
helped each.
face. Yeah. So
That's so cool.
it
you know what
reminds
really
me
freaks me out though?
of
Like the thought of, I get the impression that most of them, if not all of them, are alive. So I'm wondering if there's like 4 other people out there that have had the same dream, and
And
maybe they're
I
one of the 5.
you know what? I believe that that does happen. I believe that when sometimes you're into these really deep dreams that there's people there that you know, and I
Mhm.
sometimes feel that because even it's happened with me and you, where
yeah.
we've dreamt things, and sometimes it's, like, similar,
Yeah.
like, we're in the same
And
situation.
we'll talk about it and we'll be like, I this is what I dreamt. And then she'll be like, hey, I dreamt something like that too.
So you're in
Yeah,
the
So
same dream essentially. You're 2 people occupying the
exactly,
same dream.
right, and so
Yeah.
that kinda trips me out to think about, like, oh, people say, "Oh, dreams don't mean
yeah.
anything," like,
But your dream reminds me of What Dreams May Become, right? Remember that movie with
Yeah, I
Robin
remember that
Williams?
was a great movie. That was an awesome
yeah.
movie.
Yeah.
I need to go back and rewatch it.
You
Um,
know what, Donnie? Like, you're somebody that we would like to have on our end, you know what I mean? Like, "Hey, you come get us."
That would
But,
be cool.
you know what? And I think as a parent, like, if that was my
Yeah.
situation and somebody did that, like, somebody told me that, that would give me like, such like, a fulfilling, you know, like,
Like
you know
you
what I
would
mean?
feel like
Yeah, like, you helped him. Like, I would believe
yeah.
it. You know what I mean? I would believe it, and I
I
would
mean,
be like,
after what happened with that hummingbird, I have to believe it. I
exactly. And
can't not
so
believe it.
yeah, and I think that I think you did. I think you saved
Yeah.
that. You saved him from wherever he was in this underworld, or I don't know, you know, creepy place. And that's
Technically, I failed.
well,
Technically, I failed. Technically, we
he
got
crossed
caught.
no, but he crossed
Yeah,
over and you met Santa.
yeah.
Santa.
I mean, yeah, if we're gonna be real technical, I failed. He saved
No,
himself because
but
he's the
that's
one who
cool.
chose to leave. But yeah,
And yeah, but you got to witness it too, and like
yeah,
that must be amazing.
it
And
was
then like
weird.
yeah, and then when you had this revelation of like, hey, it was true, you know, like you had
Yeah.
your answer.
I'll be very honest. When I went experienced that, it gave me a very what's the word to describe it? It gave me a sense of just peace. Peace in knowing that no matter how bad my life turns out, no matter what good or bad I do, or no matter how crappy things turn out, at least I did that one good thing.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
You know?
exactly. And you know, that's I feel like anybody that has gone through something like that, like any parent, you know, that that would be like a sense of, what is it, like where you feel at peace, my
Yeah.
Hmm.
son or my child like was helped. Because like when you think about it, people that have committed suicide, you think, oh, it's that, where are they? Are they in
Yeah.
limbo? Did they, how do
Yeah,
they cross over? It's just,
yeah.
and so that's,
Especially for like religious parents,
yeah.
because then
Yeah.
when religious parents have to deal with like that kind of situation, um, for carriers of souls, I think
Oh,
it has something to do with the fact that they're so closely related to dinosaurs. That's my personal theory.
yeah. Yeah, it's I don't know, it's just so, and then like, watching, because of course, like we've had, like, my husband, one of his cousins, um, that happened, like he committed suicide, and it was so sad, and it's just kind of like, and even with like, I don't know if you've heard, like Dave Paulides, also he lost his son, and
Yeah,
just
I heard
watching
about
him
that.
go through that, like it's just, it just breaks my heart.
So what
Anybody.
you were mentioning something about, like there was like hummingbirds have like there's like a symbolism to them, to people who've passed away.
Well,
Well,
I think, oh, go ahead.
oh no, go ahead.
No, I was saying that, I ever since I can remember, people, I don't know where somebody told me that hummingbirds were like some sort of spiritual thing, like that when you see them sometimes, like it kind of, it's like a man, like I don't know,
I
I don't know.
I just say it because I remember when my aunt passed away, and we were like sitting as a family, and like there was like a hummingbird nest. Like we saw a hummingbird that was like, it was like, hovering,
Hmm.
and then it was like it went to its nest, which was right above us.
Hmm.
So I don't know, like to me it seemed pretty symbolic, so
I don't
that's why I
think
was
it's
like
just
curious.
hummingbirds though. I think it's just different types of birds. It depends on the soul. Like with certain,
Right.
okay, okay. So I listened to this one podcast, where someone came on and talked about like his mother passing away, and his mother was like terminally ill in the hospital, and he was like communicating back and forth with his sister who lived in a different house, like in a different town. And then one day he gets a ring at his doorbell. Oh no, 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 never mind. So and then one day, he's at his home right while his mom is in the hospital, and he hears a crashing sound. A freaking goose flies into his window and breaks his neck and dies. And he's like, "Damn!" And then he hears another crashing sound at the other side of the house, and it was like a robin. And then another crashing on another side of the house, and it was a different bird. And then all of a sudden, all these birds just like kamikaze dive his house. Like 5 or 6 of them die. They just go straight into his house and they fly straight into it. All different species. And then he gets a call from his the hospital, and they told him that his mom had passed away. So right when he calls up, his sister calls him, right, and he thinks she's calling him about his mom passing away. And no, she's calling him because she was answering her doorbell ring, and she went to answer the door, and it was like a FedEx guy, and a freaking duck flies right past his head and into the wall and dies at the same time. So when I heard that
That's
story,
crazy.
and it, assuming it's true, I was like, whoa.
That's crazy. And like, cardinals are also supposed to be a sign of deceased loved one checking in. Yeah, there's been, I remember I watched this documentary on Netflix, and it's about, near, or people dying, like people in their last days, like when
Hmm.
they're gonna die, or, and then there was this one episode where, one of it was like a family, and their mom passed away, and it was just like her daughters were at her house, and this bird just comes and flies in their hand. Like it just
Oh
stops in their
wow.
hand, and it's just there, and it wouldn't leave. And so they kind of like were like, we want you to be happy. Like they talk to the bird and they tell it, like, just go on, and we're going to be okay. And so the bird just flies away. And I was like, what? Like, this is crazy. Because a lot of people do say, uh, kind of like animal, like especially birds, kind of, they symbolize people that have passed. Even
Yeah.
like in funerals, they let go of like the
Yeah.
doves.
Maybe remember
But
earlier you asked me how cats and dogs see the paranormal,
mhm,
right? And we were talking about how they might perceive the paranormal or interact with the paranormal in a different way. Maybe
yeah,
this is the bird's way of interacting with the paranormal,
Mm.
yeah,
you know?
that's true. It's totally possible. Even horses, I think, can see things. Because my dad, like, when he saw that weird and creature thing, like, his horse was, like, freaking out. Like, it kinda like his ears, he said he can they move their ears a certain way,
Hmm.
like an alert, and he said that he turned and that's when he noticed it. And so I was like, I feel like animals are definitely, I think, more in tune than humans are, most humans, because
Yeah.
there's humans that are very sensitive to things.
Hmm.
But I think that, like, even dogs, I believe, firmly believe,
Mhm.
that dogs can tell people's intentions or they can
Oh yeah.
sense their person,
Hmm.
who they are,
Hmm.
based on just meeting them for the first time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, like Eileen, dogs love her, like
Yeah.
stranger, like any dog would just come up to her and be like, all happy, like,
Hmm.
And I love dogs, man. I see them and I'm like, let me hug you. They're just so
Yeah, they're
cute.
little love machines. I get it.
yeah.
They're
Yeah.
just
And
my dog is here for one reason and one reason only, to love up on me all the time, you know? That's all he does. That's all he wants to do. That's what he's been designed to do. Is just a love
that's
machine.
cute. And so that, and we had like an uncle too that he was kind of like, like not the nicest. And our dog would just not, like,
Oh
she was
yeah.
not
Hmm.
having him. Every time she would come over, he would come over, she would just growl at him and she's like,
Yeah.
oh, like,
And she
what
would
are you
bite
doing
his
here?
pants and pull it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it's just crazy. Like, I'm like, nope, that kind
I
of
think
like just,
humans are probably the only animals that cannot perceive the other side, whereas everything else can. Maybe that is the thing that makes us human. Maybe that's why we are the way we are.
Yeah.
yeah,
There are some
it's,
traditions that teach that in the Bible, the tree of life and the tree of knowledge.
mm-hmm.
What some traditions talk about is that the tree of life was actually the bridge into the spirit world.
Hmm.
And that was the thing. And so when mankind chose not to eat from the tree of life, what basically he was doing is he was severing that bridge that every other
Oh,
natural
I
born
see.
creature is supposed to have. And so in choosing the tree of knowledge, that's when we cut the bridge, or that's when we severed that connection or that sense.
Wow. Well, I don't want to see anything. I'm good. Like, it's just,
Yeah.
I don't think I can handle it. Like I said, I've only seen one thing and that was enough for me. And it was evil. I can tell, I can feel it. I can sense that it wasn't a good thing. Um,
You know what? I've heard, like, I don't know, I'm assuming there were ghosts. Um, like, over there in that like old hotel, right? Like where dad
Oh
works.
yeah, you were talking
oh,
about. Wait, is that the hotel you were talking about last week? Because you were
No,
doing
no,
the
this
Stanley
is like
Hotel, and you were talking about like you stayed at this one place, and
oh, was it?
no. Well, yeah, this is another hotel.
Oh
We
yeah,
forgot about
yeah,
it. But
yeah.
my dad, he works at a like a resort where they have an old 19, I think it was built in
19,
1902,
yeah.
the hotel. And it's there, it's not habitable. I mean, people use it, like, but it's private. It's like a private resort. And so
mm-hmm.
it's a really creepy hotel.
It is.
But Eileen
Mm.
would go over there and kind of work with my dad
Yeah.
sometimes.
And like helping clean the hotel, like the lodge area and like the kitchen.
And it's
And I
all
remember
empty and eerie, probably, right?
it's so creepy.
And
Like
you're
I
always
remember,
by yourself.
yeah, because
Oh yeah,
there's nobody there,
that's
and
Yeah.
creepy.
it's
That sounds
like in the
creepy.
middle of nowhere basically.
It's in the middle of nowhere.
Oh
And
damn.
I was like washing the dishes and I hear like people talking outside and I'm like, "Oh, somebody came," because I even heard a baby cry. So I was
So you
like,
just
"Oh,
assumed that
somebody's
like
here."
a bunch of people just came in. Just
Yeah,
Mhm.
because
yes.
sometimes the
Yeah.
people rent it and like
They show up.
they have cabins, so sometimes they'll rent cabins and I'm like, "Oh, people are here." That's cool because there's never people. And
Mm.
I go outside and there's no one and I was like, "What?" I'm like, "No, no, no. I heard what I heard." I'm like, I
I
can't
am
be.
not
Mhm.
crazy.
Yeah, and then I was like, "Okay, whatever. I'll just, disregard." Right? And then like I go about going to like this storage area where they have like all the cleaning supplies, and I hear like two men talking upstairs. And then I'm like, what? No. I'm like, no.
Were you
I'm gonna
scared
go.
at this point, or were you just like you believed that there were two men upstairs?
No, at this point I was scared because I'm like,
Oh,
okay, those people weren't there. So then who's up here? So I'm like, I'm gonna go outside because it's two stories. I'm like, I'm gonna go check who this is. There's nobody upstairs. So I'm like, what? Like I was so confused. I go and tell my mom, and my mom, like, the joke that like we have in our culture is like, oh, ask him where the money is. And I'm like, I do not want to find out. I'm like scared. Like, I don't even know why I'm like hearing this,
when
but
you
it was
um,
creepy.
when you found out that there were no two guys upstairs, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your fear level? If like 10 is like absolutely petrified and just full on adrenaline, and 0 is not scared at all, where would you say your fear level was at that point?
I think an 8. Yeah.
But you know what? Like we've been to that place, a
Yeah.
few, quite a
Mhm.
bit of times, and we kind of know that there's weird things going on there. It used to be a miners, what is it, like a miners lodge where they would
Yeah.
mine
So you
and they would,
already knew the reputation of the
yes,
place before
yeah.
you
So we
even.
Yeah.
Oh,
kind of
so you
were,
already had that built in, like you were already kind of
yeah.
prepared, sort of.
There's
Yeah.
sketchy stuff going
Yeah,
on there,
because it's actually 3 stories, and the very top story was like a, what do you call those
like
places?
a brothel.
Yeah, a brothel.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so I was like, okay, there might be like, it might still be a brothel,
a
like,
ghost brothel going on up
yeah,
there.
but just jokes, as a joke.
Yeah, but my dad, like he's worked there for a long time. He's seen, heard things, nothing too crazy. I mean, he doesn't really tell us about it anyways, but
Yeah,
he did have this experience where he doesn't remember what happened, but he said he fell like down.
from like a cliff kind of
Yeah,
area.
like it was bad. And he says he doesn't remember how it happened. He's worked there for so long, and like he doesn't remember tripping, he doesn't remember, and he was pushed. I don't know. I think he was pushed by something. I don't know. But he he was down there for a like an hour maybe?
Yeah,
Like, and he had cut his head open, so he was like bleeding like in a rock, like above a rock. It was like pretty scary.
yeah.
But that was the only thing as far as
I'll tell you
Oh,
about the
and the
last thing. Oh, keep going. Sorry.
Oh, like there was he found another guy because like we mentioned, there was some people who would like to go and just stay there, in the
Hmm.
cabins. And since it's like a natural hot spring, they have like a hot pool, right? Where you can swim, and they have what do you call jacuzzis,
Hmm.
right? So this man went in the winter time, and he slipped and fell, right? I don't know if he had like some type of like concussion or something, but
Hmm.
literally the water saved him, right? Being in the
well,
in the
dad
hot
said he
water.
got there and he saw like a man like sitting in, and it was in
And
the
he
middle
was
of
like
winter.
iced up, like he was like,
Iced
Yeah.
up.
Yeah. He
yeah,
was like frozen,
because it was like winter and it snows over there.
and he
Wait.
said
So wait. What happened? He fell into the pool. Like he slips and falls into the pool, or like
no.
the
No, I think
jacuzzi.
he was getting out of the jacuzzi to
Yeah.
like grab his towel and head out,
Yeah.
but he slipped with the water, and like I think,
Fell.
yeah.
And fell. So he like knocked himself out, but he was still in the jacuzzi.
No, he was out of the jacuzzi.
Out of the jacuzzi.
But
Yes.
like he
Oh,
was still alive. He would have died if he
Well,
wasn't.
he
he was
said that
unconscious outside the
yeah,
jacuzzi.
yeah,
And then it
and
was
so
cold, and then there was ice, and then yeah, that's a bad
right.
situation. Okay.
And my dad showed up and he said that he saw him sitting there in the like out in the cold.
And he couldn't talk, huh? He was just like,
Yeah, he wasn't talking. He said he was
yeah.
making like weird like squeaking
Yeah, so
noises.
that my dad could see that he was there,
And so my
like,
dad kind of like he said he grabbed him because he said that he was like frozen, and he
Hmm.
grabbed him and he dipped him like in the hot
all his
pool,
icy
Hmm.
parts,
and
like
he kind of like he called the ambulance. They picked him up and they told him like, if you wouldn't have put him in the hot pool, he would have died. Like he had hypothermia. Like he
Yeah.
was like, yeah, it was pretty crazy.
So did the
Yeah.
guy ever like thank your dad afterwards? Did he ever like
I
visit
think
with
he
him
did.
or? Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think he
he
did.
was in the hospital for a while.
Yeah.
And then he came back and he was like, "Hey, if it wasn't for you, like I would have died." But it was crazy. I don't
Oh,
know. Pretty trippy.
that is a crazy story. And
Yeah,
that happened
like
at the same place.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has, I don't know, it's and then there
I
was
don't
another woman that died there, remember?
Oh, there was?
In one of the cabins.
Oh,
They found her dead,
yeah.
like she was
While your dad was working there?
yeah. He was
Damn.
cuz so he goes on the weekends it gets rented out, so he doesn't work on the
Yeah.
weekends. And he
Mm.
said that a woman they had told him that over the weekend a woman had died in one of the cabins because she had like over I supposedly she was drinking alcohol and she like overdosed on something. Like I don't know if
Maybe
she
she was
was like
taking pills and it just didn't hit
maybe
her
she was
system
like
right.
cross
Yeah. Yeah.
and so they just found her in the cabin like it was crazy. I was like, wow.
Damn.
But
Well,
I
good thing
mean,
your dad wasn't working there at the time, you know?
Yeah, no.
Didn't have
yeah.
to
I'm
go through all
like
that.
but he's like, "Yeah, I try not to think about like all the stuff that goes on there."
Yeah, because it's eerie,
It
like
is an
the
eerie yeah.
vibe. And like, it doesn't matter where you are, if you're outside or if you're inside one of the cabins, like, it just feels like someone's watching you
Mhm.
anywhere you are. So
Okay.
I don't like being there. It's creepy.
Let me ask you this question that I what do you think would scare you more? Having a ghost or demon encounter, having a like a UFO abduction, or like seeing a cryptid or like a dogman or a Bigfoot? Like which one? Like how would you rank them in terms of like your personal order of scariness?
Wow.
Like what
I
would
think
scare you the most?
I think for me, hands down, the number one thing, scariest thing would be like if I saw something I couldn't explain. You know, like things that happen like in Skinwalker Ranch. Like if I saw some type of creature I never seen before and I didn't know what it was,
Mhm.
I think I would be so shocked in fear. Like I'd be like, I don't even know what this is. I can't comprehend. I feel like that
Mhm.
would be this. And then second to that, probably a dog man. I do not want to see that. That's scary. I don't.
A dog man.
What
I
would
Yeah.
don't
you
know.
say? And what would you say then would be the least scary out of all of them, out of all the choices?
I
Like,
think
what do you think is like the one encounter that yeah, I think I can handle that.
You know what? I can definitely handle a Bigfoot. I think
yeah, I think
Bigfoot
Bigfoot,
I would
I
be
don't
like,
know.
"Oh snap, look, there's Bigfoot." But
I mean, I'd be
but
very
no,
respectful. I'd be like, oh, bow
Sorry,
and
I'm in your way,
take it.
sir.
Sorry, don't
yeah,
even
no,
bother
I
me.
think I would have to be like 1,000 miles away, like just binocular wise.
No, you know what? A Bigfoot would be scary.
Yeah, it would be scary, but
No,
I think
I think the last thing on the spectrum would be a ghost. You know,
That'd be
because at least you
your
know it's a
last.
human.
oh, like a ghost, you know, it won't hurt you.
But then you know why ghosts are scary? Because they show up at like unexpected times. You know, when you're like at home and comfortable, and then bam, and you're like, what the hell? I wasn't ready for this. You know,
Yeah.
if you're
No.
going out in the woods and you see a Bigfoot, you're like, well, I mean, like I'm in Bigfoot country. I'm probably gonna
Yeah,
see it.
that's
You're
true.
not gonna see a Bigfoot at like Costco or something, you know?
You know, I think that for me, I think I would be really scared to see like any type of like demonic entity. Like, no,
That'd be creepy.
I can't like
Well,
which, you know, I'm very like much in tune with my Christian side. I'm very, you know,
mhm,
very religious. So I'm like,
mhm.
I have the power of God to protect me.
And
So
I know plenty of bad demon stories. So yeah.
yeah, like
If
that's
there was a
That's
place I
scary.
knew, like okay, going to a haunted place is one thing, right? I've spent the night at like famously haunted places already, two already, going on my third one in a couple weeks. You know, if it's just ghosts, that's one thing. I can handle that, right? Not that
Mhm.
scary. I've come out on top when I've encountered such things. So I'm good.
Right.
If I knew there was straight up demonic stuff going on in that house, though, hell no. I don't want to even be in like 10-mile radius of that thing. Hell no. I'm not. I'm
No.
not. You cannot pay me. No,
No, and you
cannot
know,
pay me.
like even for like I don't like to watch any of those movies like Conjuring or like exorcism movies, like none of that. Like, I can't. It freaks me out.
Yeah.
Like I'm just like I can't watch movies. I like scary stuff, but I can hear it. I can hear about it, I just putting an
Have you?
like visual, no.
Did you? So, did you grow up like religious at all? Catholic,
Yes.
Christian,
Yes, Catholic.
Yeah.
Catholic, very Catholic, or
Yes,
practice?
very,
Yeah.
very
So,
Catholic.
when you were growing up in the Catholic Church, did you ever hear any like messed up like exorcism stories from, or like hear any rumors of such things like while you were growing up in the church?
No, not growing up. Not until like now that I got older and I started to dive into the paranormal, like kind of like become interested in it. Not
Yeah.
that I dive in it because I don't like go investigate anything because I don't want to. Like that's crazy. But um I did talk to the priest. I asked them about it, and one of my husband's aunts, she's a nun, so she's like a missionary nun. She goes out and she does different mission work around the
Hmm.
world. And so I've talked to them about like exorcisms and demonic entities, things like that. And the only thing one of the priests told me that when it comes to like being possessed, it's not very common. It's not very, um, as much as Hollywood tries to make it seem, it's not as bad as that.
Hmm.
But he says that it's rare when it happens. He said most of the time it's something n- like there's something underlying going on, like
Well, yeah,
whether
like
that be
some.
schizophrenia
Mhm.
or, any type of disorder, anything like that. But he
Yeah,
said that when it does come to a spiritual, I guess, possession, um, then it's, you have to go through like through these well, that's what the church does. They go through these like steps before they even consider doing
yeah.
like an exorcism. So he says that once everything's been checked out, they've gone to doctors and different things, then they do get somebody to exercise, but it has to be somebody specific. It can't be just any priest that
It's got
does
to be
it.
someone who's like actually been trained to
Yeah,
do
exactly.
exorcisms. Yeah,
And it has to be approved
yeah.
by the archdiocese.
And
So
apparently they got like the Vatican has like a whole separate program for it, where like it's like a
yeah,
whole like schooling system, and like it's like an elective thing that priests can volunteer for, but you got to go through this amount of like hours of like
right,
yeah,
training.
it's like real training. Yeah.
Yeah, and so he said it wasn't like as crazy as people think where like they start walking up walls and like he's like, "No, it's very,
Mm.
very like just negative. It's like a lot of negativity
So
and a lot of anger." And so I mean,
so
but there's
um
been cases, where it's pretty bad.
So I also, just like you, grew up in a very religious household.
Mhm.
We were the Korean church. Whole family is very involved. My dad's an elder. You
Mhm.
know that elders are like the pastor's boss,
Okay.
right? So he was like well known in like the Korean Christian community, like well
Right.
known, like internationally known. And my parents' intention for me always was for me to be a pastor. That was like their vision for me, I guess.
Mhm.
So growing up, I was like the one that had to like go to all the Bible studies and read the Bible cover to cover. And I had like pastors like mentoring me, and I got put in all these like church positions and stuff. And when I was in high school, I was being mentored by my pastor at the time, who was like, he grew up in Korea, but this guy was it's Protestant,
Mhm.
like Presbyterian.
Right.
Like this guy was a serious conservative, like biblically very conservative. This guy went to Yale for his doctorate in theology. Like this guy was like
Wow.
serious deal, right? And he was like kind of my mentor. And he told me some real messed up exorcism stories. Some real
Yeah.
messed up ones. Like, and this is like not his stories, but amongst the Korean pastors, they all kind of have their own little, I guess, social network.
Mhm.
So like rumors fly around like crazy, right?
Right.
And there's this one famous story going around amongst all the pastors where basically this took place in Korea. So I think what happened was this girl got so this guy basically screwed a Korean shaman out of some money, like evicted
Mhm.
her. So the shamans was like, oh yeah. You're gonna like evict me from my building? Well, then I'm gonna have your daughter get possessed. How about that? Daughter gets possessed. You know, this guy goes to the church. He goes to my pastor's friends, right? And they do the Protestant version of an exorcism where they, you know, they have a bunch of guys with the Bible. They have dudes holding them down. They have people around them praying. And one of the pastors is standing in front of this girl, and he's like, you know, commanding demon, show yourself. And the girl just kind of looks at him. She says, "Oh, you want me to show myself?" And then she sticks out her tongue, and her tongue stretches down to the floor. And at that point, the people who were holding her down all freaked out, and like people were like running out of the room, like in a sheer panic.
That's crazy.
And he would tell me stories like that, and I'm like, he's like, dude, there's some crazy. He was like telling me spiritual warfare is a
Oh yeah.
real thing,
And
man.
you know, that's the thing.
But like, don't you remember that story that priest told us? Remember that he got like real scared because he was at the church
Oh yeah.
and that somebody came in that was possessed and
Mhm.
that they started moving like a snake.
Yeah, on the floor. It got on the floor and it started. And you know, that's the
Like
thing.
slithering at him.
Yes.
Yeah.
Dude,
And
I
then
would be
like that
mad scared if that happened. Could you imagine a person slithering at you on the floor? I've tried to like kick him
No.
in the head. I'm like, get out of here.
But see, and that's the thing that when I asked about it, I mean, how deep are they gonna get into it with, you know, like a church member? Like, you know, like, are they really gonna
Yeah.
tell me the truth? Like, but Alan's my husband,
This pastor, he loved talking about it. He
he's like,
loved
I'm gonna
talking about
scare
it.
Jesus into you.
No, it wasn't even that. It was like he was like a nerd, you know. He was just
Yeah.
like a nerd for this stuff. You know,
Yeah.
he just got off on talking about it because you know he was just like, and then he would always end it like, "That's why you gotta believe in the Lord." And he didn't mean
Right.
it as a sermon, but that's
He's
just
gonna
like him
scare you into
realizing.
it.
Yeah.
But that's
But
the
anyway,
thing, like,
sorry to interrupt.
no, no, I was gonna say my husband's aunt, she has some stories about that, and she said she saw one, an exorcism once, and that she said, "Never again did I volunteer to go into one of those rooms." She said it was crazy, like it was what the
Did she
movies
did
make
she
it
say
seem
like
like.
some details about some of the stuff she saw?
I think she said like just the body, like moving your bodies, and like the person was moving its body,
like
like
in abnormal
yeah,
ways.
Hmm.
like you're no way your bones can do that, you know,
Yeah.
like type of scenario. And she said that she just got out. She's like, I couldn't be in there. The priest told me to, you know, stay in there and like hold the line. She's like, I couldn't. I took off. But you know, like I've heard like if the Vatican has assigned people that do like priests, right? The high priests, I want to say, that do this thing that have
Hmm.
to be trained, it's because it takes a lot, right?
Yeah.
And it has to be rigorous and it has to be like to
Yeah.
that extent to where
Where
you
it's
need a
intense.
team.
But also, I have also heard the opposite story of exorcisms that succeeded so easily. It like looked like it was like no big deal,
Right.
where they just walk in and be like, "Hey, get the hell out," and it just leaves. Like, oh, my bad, sorry.
Yeah.
I've
And
heard
so
those
I think,
stories too.
yeah, and I think that
Yeah,
it's a variety. Like it could
yeah.
be different. There's some definitely stronger than others.
And you know what it is? Also, it's like I think people can be possessed by different things, and depending on what that thing is, not just demons, but there are other things. So if something else besides a demon possesses someone, and they try to exercise it like it is a demon, then it's just going to be like, nah,
Yeah.
just
And
no,
you know, like, yeah, like even with like aliens, like, what do you do
yeah,
with that? You know
yeah.
what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. But see, like aliens, I don't know. Would you ever want to encounter like an alien experience or like,
I feel
Yeah.
like personally, I would be least scared with aliens,
What
and
would be the
not to
most
say
scary?
like demonic stuff,
yeah.
or actually, if I ever saw a dog man, I don't know how I would react. I wouldn't know how I would react. But I will tell you why the aliens would scare me the least is not because I feel confident against them or anything. Is because I feel like the first thing my mind would go to if I were like to wake up in a spacecraft would be like, you guys use chairs? We use chairs. Oh, you guys wear clothes? We use clothes too. You guys use tables. I got a table in my house. Wow. And I'll be like so like I would have so many questions and so such
Right.
amazement that like fear would be the last thing. And also the other reason why I wouldn't fear is because I feel like the aliens are like so much more powerful in a physical sense that if it wanted me dead, I'm just dead. Well, what are you gonna do? You know, they
Right.
just yeah. If they wanted to
Laser beam.
disintegrate me, they'll just disintegrate me.
That's crazy. I don't think I don't want like I said, I don't want to see anything. I'm super cool right here,
Yeah,
just listening. But I don't know, like it's aliens, I think I don't know. I used to have a reoccurring dream of an alien. Is that weird? Like
a gray alien.
I don't know if it was gray. It looked like a typical alien, but it was in my backyard. You remember that where the
That
chupacabra ate the
where he
little
The
showed
same
up.
backyard where all that
the
happened.
same backyard,
Yeah.
that same house where we encountered that UFO. I used to have this reoccurring dream of an alien standing in the back, and I would like kind of like in my dream, I would float, like kind of hover, and I would see it standing there, and it would just point at something. And then I would just like, and then as soon as I would get close to it and I kind of turn to see what it was pointing at, I would wake up. And it was like an ongoing dream. Like it was always the same thing.
What did it look
And
like?
just, like tall, skinny, like big old eyes,
But
like
like a
little,
so like a tall, skinny gray alien, sort of, right?
yeah, yeah. He didn't look short. He looked like he was taller but he was just like he had those big old black eyes and
Hmm.
little dots, but
Did
his
you
fingers
feel
were long.
did you feel scared during those dreams?
No, I wasn't scared of it. I was not
Yeah.
scared of it. I was just kinda, like,
Curious?
curious, right, yeah. It was
Hmm.
weird. And so I would always have that dream, like, it was always the same thing, just that, floating and seeing it and then waking up. But I never, like, really like, it stopped now, but it would happen often, and I was just like, "What does that mean?" And then when they would talk about that it could be some type of, like, alien encounter or I don't know, like real thing. I was like, no,
Hmm.
I don't know. It didn't feel bad. It didn't feel like an
Hmm.
evil thing to me, but I'm cool. I'm not having
Yeah.
them anymore. I don't want to.
I think for ghosts, if I have to classify ghosts in terms of scariness, it could be 10 or 0 depending on the circumstances. Like if I go in expecting to meet a ghost and if I'm ready for it, then 0. I'm not scared at all. If I'm not ready for it, like if I'm like, taking a dump on the toilet or something and reading a book, and then it just comes out of nowhere, then yes, 10, you know?
If
Like I
you're
don't
in
even
a
know the place is
vulnerable
haunted. Yeah,
position.
I'm in a vulnerable position and then bam, I was like, I didn't even know this place was haunted. Holy crap. I'll be out of 10.
I was gonna ask you too. I one of your stories on the Gettysburg when you went.
Yeah.
I was listening to it, and
Oh yeah. Where I
can you
farted
share
on a
that story?
ghost.
Can you share that story? I thought it was so
Well,
funny.
I mean, like I had on the way there it was like an hour and a half drive. So like I stopped by, when I got gas, I got 2 gas station hot dogs. And, gas station hot
AM
dogs.
PM dog.
So when they give us a tour, most of the house is actually like it's got spirits, but they seem pretty friendly. It's like a positively haunted house. Weird. Like Hoover House is like it's like a haunted house, but like 9 out of 10 of the ghosts are like really nice and really cool.
Oh, okay.
Except for this one bastard in the cellar. That's like the guy who like killed a woman and like just strangled her and was like a very abusive. And there was like that one guy in the cellar, and they would take pictures, and it would be a shadow person, and it would always be in
Oh,
this
heck
one
no.
spot in the cellar.
That's
And
crazy.
so when they told me about that, and I had to like fart, I was like, "Which spot was it again?" So they showed me where the spot was, and I just walked over to it. And I was like, "Oh, you killed a woman? Eat my farts!" And I just like farted in that direction. He just deserved it. And he killed a woman. I was saving
And
it for him.
that's funny. And then
I
what
was like,
happened?
"This
Like,
is your karma. 100 years later, this random dude's just gonna walk up to you and just fart in your face." I mean, he
yeah,
killed that woman. Don't you think he deserved it?
yeah, he needs to
Yeah,
go. Like, I don't know
he needs to
where
learn
they
a
go,
lesson.
but that's
You know what
crazy.
it is? He's burning in hell right now, and I just stabbed a pitchfork. That's all I did. That's all I
That was,
did.
yeah, but I don't know. It's crazy. Like,
Yeah.
but I think we're gonna go ahead and end the show here because I know there's a lot of people going live right now.
Oh, I'm
It's
hopping on
Friday.
Sean's right after this. It's
Yeah,
gonna be the
Friday is
after
always
party.
the live parties, but yeah, but I would love to have you come back on. I know you have
Oh yeah,
a
anytime.
lot more stories, and I
And
really
I could
enjoyed
talk
them.
about whatever. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, definitely.
anytime. My schedule's like I don't really have much of a social life to be honest. So I got a lot of free time like
Oh,
around this time. So anytime, any
yeah,
day,
awesome. But
just
we
message me and
appreciate.
we'll be in touch. But yeah, this is a lot
Yeah,
of fun. This is a lot of
I
fun.
know I had a lot of fun, and you
Yeah, it
have
was
that was
cool.
an awesome story. I really
Yeah.
enjoyed that story, and um, but yeah, everybody that came in, we really appreciate you guys and saying hi. Sorry,
Yeah,
I don't know if
know.
I answered if you guys had any questions, but if you do, just leave some in the comments and maybe we can answer them later. But we appreciate everybody being here and we
I
appreciate
didn't see a
Donnie.
single chat. I think you highlighted only one. I have no idea what these people were talking about.
Yeah, I was so into your story. I was like,
Sorry
so
for ignoring you guys. Sorry.
no, it's okay. We appreciate it and it
Yeah.
was great. So hopefully we'll do this again sometime
Yes. Anytime.
Yeah.
and thank you guys for coming and don't forget to go over to Sean's show tonight. I think he's already on.
Yeah.
And say hi over there to everybody in the chat. But thank you guys.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.